Every nation on Earth is pouring billions of dollars into concrete and steel to control flooding. But one valley in Scotland has proven that humanity's entire water management strategy has been moving in the wrong direction. Instead of using supercomputers, the authorities decided to hand control of a declining river over to 11 wild individuals. The result went beyond anything anyone could imagine. Guided by pure instinct alone, these animals, each weighing about 44 pounds, completely restructured the entire flow of the river. They eliminated 60% of flood energy, transformed barren land into a vast underground reservoir holding 6 million gallons of water. Operating cost? Exactly $0. A perfect ecological solution made only of wood debris and mud completely outperformed the most complex hydrological algorithms of the 21st century. What truth lies behind this experiment that overturned every engineering rule? The truth is that the entire water crisis in the United Kingdom did not begin with modern climate change. It is the result of an ecologically devastating extraction campaign that began 400 years ago. Before the 16th century, rivers across Europe did not flow with the speed and violence they do today. They were locked in place and restrained by thousands of natural dams. But humans destroyed that entire network of perfect infrastructure. Beavers were hunted so relentlessly that they were driven to extinction. Why? Europe's elite wanted their fur for hats, and even more seriously, they exploited them intensively for castoreum, a secretion from their scent glands used as a fixative in luxury perfume workshops in Paris. By the late 1500s, when the last beaver disappeared, the ecosystem officially lost its chief engineer. The consequences arrived immediately. With no dams left to restrain the flow, the kinetic energy of the water surged. Water eroded riverbanks and completely wiped out the wetlands that had functioned as the continent's giant sponge. Rivers turned into straight water delivery channels. In the rainy season, they dumped millions of cubic meters of water into cities. In the dry season, they ran down to bare stone. Humans destroyed their own flood defense system with their own hands in exchange for a few drops of perfume. That forgetting lasted 4 centuries and made us assume those violent rivers were natural, until the Scottish government decided to bring these ecological builders back. May 2009, Knapdale Forest, mid-Argyll. After years of fierce legal disputes, the Scottish government approved a bold experiment with no precedent. 11 beavers were captured from the wild Telemark region of Norway. After a strict quarantine process, they were released into 3 isolated lochs. This was not a symbolic act of animal release. It was the most tightly monitored ecological experiment in modern scientific history. Scientists do not believe in miracles. They believe in data. The entire area, spanning 44 square kilometers, was turned into a giant outdoor laboratory. Hydrologists implanted pressure sensors deep into the mud. Laser flow meters were installed to scan every stream. Every square meter of vegetation was marked with GPS coordinates. Infrared camera traps covered the pathways. Even the chemical composition of the water and the number of every individual insect flying above the loch surface were entered into baseline tables. A strict control measure was already prepared. If these 11 animals damaged the landscape or caused economic harm, they would be removed immediately. During the first cold, drizzly nights, under the infrared glow of the cameras, the 11 animals began to work. Young tree trunks fell under sharp bites. They dug through mud and soil, weaving branches and stones together. A network of water-blocking dams rose up, packed so tightly that the violent flow was squeezed down to little more than a soft trickling sound. However, the moment the first dams took shape, a crisis erupted that threatened to erase the entire project. These mud and timber engineers had touched a multi-billion-dollar economic force in Scotland, the Atlantic salmon. The region's salmon industry, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, went into red alert. Human logic was simple. Salmon need to swim upstream to spawn. Beavers build wooden walls across rivers. Therefore, beavers would destroy the future of salmon. A special beaver and salmon working group was urgently formed to investigate. If evidence of blockage was found, the beaver population would be expelled. But when biologists dived into the waters behind the dams, what they discovered shattered every traditional biological theory. The dams were not watertight like concrete, they were porous biological filters. During heavy rain, water spilled over the edges of the dams, creating natural passageways for adult salmon. But the greatest shock lay with the young salmon. Fish count data exploded. The still, cool pools behind the beaver dams had turned into perfect nurseries. Before this, in artificially fast-flowing rivers, young fish spent all of their life energy just fighting the current and escaping predators. Now, the thousands of tiered ponds created by beavers provided calm shelter. The insect food source, multiplying in the pooled water, was so abundant that juvenile salmon in beaver areas developed greater size and strength than those in undammed areas before heading out to the ocean. What humans had imagined as a dangerous barrier turned out to be one of nature's most valuable cradles of survival. The Salmon Paradox was decoded, but even more shocking data from satellites was about to shatter every textbook on hydrology. By the 5th year of the campaign, a system of more than 100 dams stretched across the valleys. Some of the structures spread wider than 30 meters. The University of Exeter analyzed more than 1,000 major storms sweeping through the test areas using three-dimensional imaging technology from drones. The results left civil engineers stunned. This dam system made of broken branches reduced flood peaks by as much as 60% during the most severe storms. The destructive energy of millions of tons of water rushing down from the mountains was not stopped by mechanical force like concrete dams. Instead, it was absorbed. The beaver colony had accidentally applied a perfect principle of energy dissipation. Water rose at dam number 1, spilled over dam number 2, and seeped through dam number 3. With each layer, the violence of the flood was stripped away. With every dam, a vast invisible reservoir was created underground. In the surveyed area in Devon later on, laser scanning technology measured that the beavers had stored more than 24 million liters of water, equal to 10 Olympic swimming pools. Instead of spending billions of dollars like artificial reservoir projects in California or Spain, the beaver colony had created a completely free water storage system right at the headwaters. But their true power does not lie in flood control. The most formidable skill this animal possesses is drought resistance. By slowing the flow of water, they force it to spread sideways and sink deep into exhausted shallow aquifers. They create gigantic underground sponges. Throughout the record dry summer, when rivers outside cracked open and ran down to bare beds, the areas with beavers still maintained steady base flow. Groundwater kept seeping back upward, sustaining lush vegetation. A rodent weighing about 44 pounds solved the problem of multi-purpose water storage that governments spend billions of dollars trying to study. Nature does not need rigid blocks of concrete, it needs complexity. And the stunning success at Knapdale ignited an ecological revolution that went far beyond the control of the authorities. While scientists were staring at monitoring screens, tracking the 11 legal beavers in Knapdale, on the other side of the country, in the Tayside area, an underground empire was rising. Dozens of beavers had escaped from private collections or had been secretly released by anonymous ecological activists. No sensors, no tracking tags, no government monitoring. They were free to do what they do best, restore natural order. The biological explosion unfolded at a terrifying speed. In the year 2012, thermal cameras scanning Tayside detected about 150 wild individuals. 4 years later, that number had jumped to 433. Over the following decade, the rate of reproduction surpassed every forecast. The wild population quickly crossed into the thousands, occupying hundreds of separate territories. Scotland's river ecosystems witnessed a powerful transformation, a disruption for landscapes that had been artificially shaped by humans, but a brilliant rebirth for biodiversity. The sudden spread of beaver dams triggered a spectacular food chain reaction. The return of wetlands led to an explosion of aquatic insects. Those insects drew tens of thousands of migratory birds back again. Water was stripped of suspended sediment by the mud barriers of the dams, creating the conditions for rare plant species to photosynthesize and spread densely along both riverbanks. A rigid and barren landscape was transformed into a living, temperate rainforest. But every transformation comes with a cost. As groundwater levels rose, some fertile farmland in the lowlands began to flood. Tractors sank deep into the mud. Gardens and crops were damaged. The conflict between humans and nature was once again pushed to its highest point. The authorities stood before two choices: remove them once more or learn to yield to nature. On May 1st, 2019, the Scottish Parliament made a decision that changed history. Despite pressure from agricultural lobbying groups, beavers were officially placed on the list of European protected species. Hunting, killing, or destroying their dams without a special permit was strictly forbidden. Instead of continuing harsh intervention measures, the government established a compensation fund worth millions of dollars for farmers, financing flow devices to balance water levels. This decision was a turning point. Humanity had finally accepted stepping back and returning ecosystem management to its true owner. Now, a network of thousands of beavers is working day and night across watersheds throughout the United Kingdom. This mud engineer model has expanded beyond the borders of Scotland. England has legalized the release of wild beavers. Wales is preparing for its first releases. From North America to many other territories across Europe, policymakers are redrawing hydrological maps, removing artificial structures, and letting beavers complete the rest of the work. From a collapse lasting more than 400 years to the historic experiment of 11 tiny individuals, the ecosystem has taught us a brutal lesson about power. For centuries, we have always assumed that in order to survive, humans must manage water. That water is a lifeless thing that must be controlled by walls growing ever higher and channels cut ever deeper. We have fought the complexity of nature with a straight-line mechanical mindset, only to receive one severe environmental disaster after another, all created by our own hands. Beavers have proven this humanity's greatest flood control technology turns out to be doing nothing at all. A self-sustaining system capable of responding on its own to storms, designed entirely by survival instinct, branches, and mud, can permanently defeat the most complex computer algorithms of the 21st century. Water never needed human control. It needed to be slowed down, it needed to breathe, it needed space to spread. When you remove the ancient engineers that shaped Earth's landscapes for millions of years, what you get is not safety. What you get is ecological collapse. Rivers never became better when beavers disappeared. They slid into disaster. Now life is returning, not because our technology suddenly became more advanced. The root cause is a shift in human thinking. Instead of trying to interfere with natural structure, we are beginning to give power back to the creatures that have held the skill of ecological regulation for millions of years. Sometimes, the greatest flood barrier is not poured in concrete. It is built by a family of rodents, tirelessly working beneath a midnight downpour. From a scientific point of view, how do you evaluate this ecological solution? Are you more impressed by its ability to store water against drought, or by the recovery of the salmon population? Leave your opinion in the comment section. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel so you can continue exploring nature's greatest constructions in the next videos. See you again!